NBA awards are coming out in due time, and I want to pick them. So to do that, we're going to pick an award winner for every normal NBA award, plus a Pacers winner for every NBA award, even though the Pacers will not be winning of any of them on today's Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and the West Side Community News. And today, if you're listening, it's a big day. It is Cavs-Hawks Day. The last game the Pacers care about this season is tonight. But we're not talking about any of that today. We'll get to it on Monday. Today is Awards Day. I want to get ahead of this before the NBA awards come out. So today, we're talking about every NBA award, who I think should win in the whole league, plus who the Pacers winner for that award is on their team, even though, unlike years past, the Pacers have no shot at any major award. Joining me to sift through these lists, Derek Kramer at iPacersblog, as you know him. Derek, how's it going, man?
Pretty good.
You are the sixth man of this podcast. I have rules about the number of times someone can guess during the season because I don't want it to just be like the same voices all the time. But the season is over. So Derek leading the way this regular season no longer matters. The off-season quota resets is a 0. This was an interesting exercise because like in years past, like last year, McConnell was top 7 for sixth man of the year. You know, he got some votes there. Turner's always in the defensive player of the year conversation, despite not, really having a chance because of the position he plays. Sabonis gets in the mix for some various things. Sixth man a few years ago, most improved. They won the most in the NBA. Like every year, there's always some buzz for some Pacer to do something. Maybe it's an all-rookie team like Duarte this year is the only real thing. This year, there's like nothing. If Duarte doesn't make all-rookie, they have no shot at anything. So it's really interesting to go through this stuff and decide who the award winners just for the Pacers roster are, because even then I was kind of like, wow, their candidates for these awards are really bad.
Yeah, and they had a lot of 28 players on the roster this year, so we had a list of names to choose from. But yes, it was difficult at times.
It was. Fortunately, 6 of those players played less than 100 minutes. Didn't even consider any of them. And honestly, a lot of the guys didn't get consideration anyway. We'll start big each segment and then go to something small. Like Coach of the Year, I want to pick an NBA one, but it's stupid for the Pacers. So we'll go big first. Let's just do MVP first. You want to do League or Pacers? I think there's more discussion for Pacers. Let's start with the Pacers MVP first. Who is your Indiana Pacers 2021-22 MVP? Don't laugh before you answer.
We're starting with I just tried to have some fun with this one because it just felt right. So I want to give you in reverse order my top 3.
Okay.
So number 3 is the only Pacers player who had a positive net rating who played more than 2 minutes.
Oh, God.
Who is it? Do you know?
I think Jeremy Lamb ended up with a positive net rating.
Jeremy Lamb, that's my number 3 MVP candidate.
Yikes.
Number 2. It's hard to say this one with a straight face. Brad Wanamaker. Now, let me explain. The reason that I'm jokingly calling him one of the most valuable players is if he wasn't on the roster, if they would have had anybody competent to be that backup emergency point guard, the year might have went a little bit differently. Just a couple of those games early in the year, some of those close games that he played where those pick 6 turnovers and those things, I think just his presence on the roster, and I think he might be an NBA player, just not a point guard. I don't want to.
You were thrilled he guided them to a top 5 lotto pick. That's what you're telling me.
That's what I'm saying. Yes, I think he contributed greatly to the Pacers ending up with that 5th pick. Number 1 is Domas Sabonis is my Pacers MVP. He was the best player that played for the team all year, and he was literally very valuable because the Pacers traded him away for Tyrese Halliburton, who would be my still on the team MVP.
Yeah, I went with Sabonis as well. He was their best player when he played by far. Like the record was bad when the trade deadline came, but in games Sabonis played, they were good, and his on-off stump numbers were still good. Like their net rating with him on the floor was basically even, -0.7, right? Same with Turner, same with Brogdon. Those 3 all together the team was good. The problem is they rarely had all of them. They were all hurt all the time. And a lot of backups, like you said. Brad Wanamaker was really rough this year. Justin Holiday takes a step back. Jeremy Lamb, despite his positive net rating, does not have a positive impact. We all know what really happened this year. So Sabonis was my answer. Halliburton was the only other guy I considered. His on-off was very solid by the end of the year for the Pacers as well. But they were just not very good at all down the stretch of the season. But he was obviously their best player to me, at least from the trade deadline on. So Sabonis was the answer, I think. I mean, he was their best player and had a huge impact on the on-off numbers. But Turner had good on-offs as well, and Brogdon had good on-offs as well, and I didn't consider them. I didn't use on-offs explicitly. Sabonis is just so impressive that it has to be considered for a team that won 25 games. And then Halliburton obviously was just really good. But those are the only two guys I even like. Obviously, you weren't seriously considering Brad Wanamaker. Those are the only two guys I actually considered for this. No one else played enough or was good enough.
No, it was the same way for me. It was it was the two guys at the headline of the big trade. Those were
the players who played more minutes than Sabonis. Actually, he played the most minutes for the Pacers this year, which is hysterical in retrospect. The guys who played more games than him are Dwayne Washington, not MVP, obviously, Justin Holiday, Goga, Torrey Craig, Chris Duarte, and O'Shea Brissett. Brissett, longevity award winner. Duarte was good, but not the MVP. So Sabonis is the answer. I mean, it's really strange because he played in less than 50 games and was traded halfway through the season, but it's impossible to find a more valuable Pacer to me.
Yep, we're on the same page.
Who I get to go first this time. I have to rant about the league MVP award.
Go for it.
So there are only 3 candidates. I think everybody's figured that out by now. Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, and Giannis Antetokounmpo are the 3 candidates. One of them will win. In fact, I think it's clear which one is going to win. It's going to be Jokic. The betting lines do not get this stuff wrong. They track every award ballot that gets published. Anyway, so one of my beefs with MVP every year, and I just used on-offs, so I'm pooping on myself here, but I used on-offs for just Pacers players because they all have the same teammates. They all have the same level of guys subbing in for them and the same bench units counting against and for them. Using on-offs to compare a guy in the Nuggets and a guy in the Sixers is so stupid because they have different teammates. It doesn't matter. It doesn't make sense to me to do that, first of all. Second of all, MVP debate thing I hate. When people call net rating and offensive rating and defensive rating advanced stats because points per game is a division problem, points divided by games, and points per possession is apparently some crazy mathematical advanced formula that requires a calculator. So I hate MVP discussions. I think they all suck. And I think they all completely miss the point because they're a little too statistical based. My MVP is Giannis. I think Giannis is the best player in the league. And when I watch the Bucks, I feel his impact more than any player in the league. He can do anything, right? He attacks the perimeter. He can post up. He makes his teammates way better. You have to game plan a ton for him because he just barrels into the lane. His defense is incredible. He's my MVP. And I think Jokic is amazing. And I think Embiid's amazing. If either of them win, I'll be like, yeah, they've had awesome seasons. But I think that the MVP discussions just are really dumb this year. Way worse than years past where there was the last tough year was 2017 when it was Russ, Kawhi, Harden, and LeBron, I think. Where Russ was the triple-double clutch guy and Kawhi was the best player but didn't play a bunch and Harden had unbelievable stats. They all had different cases. This year, everybody's trying to use the same evaluations for all of them, and it's stupid. It's dumb. I think Giannis is the best player, so he gets my vote.
I completely understand where you're coming from with the on-off things being dumb because, it's not like when you're comparing Embiid and Jokic, who knows what Embiid's on-off would be if he had that lack of depth that Jokic does. It would be that drastic too. So it's an interesting argument to go that way when the contexts are so different.
To sum it up, to me, it's the Nuggets bench and the Sixers benches are being compared in that discussion. And how is that relevant at all to how good Embiid and Jokic are? It doesn't matter. Anyway, carry on.
Yes. My MVP is Embiid. I got Embiid 1, then Jokic 2, then Giannis 3. I don't have a problem with anybody saying any of those guys. Embiid, just for me, he was the most impressive this year. Just watching him, and obviously he completely destroyed the Pacers about every time, but who didn't? Who didn't do that? Maybe it hurt Jokic's case that I didn't get to see him once because he was suspended, and then the Nuggets bench that's so bad beat the Pacers by themselves.
I forgot about that game.
That was one of the worst ones of the year. I was reminded of it while I was doing this. I was like, oh yeah, I didn't get to see Jokic as much this year. But Embiid was the guy for me. He's just so impressive. All three
he
of
was the
those guys.
best. He was for the not this year as much, but he's been a defensive player of the year candidate like 4 years in a row, and he led the league in scoring this year. Like his argument is madly impressive, wildly impressive. I think Jokic is going to win, and I'm totally fine with that. He's insanely good. But they all have such good cases that the comparisons are way harder this year, and it's become a lot of like, oh, Jokic sucks at this thing, so Embiid should. I'm like, no, to stop doing that. Like, just do what we just did. Like, Embiid is really good, and
Yep.
Giannis is really good, and Jokic is really good. Like, that's why any of them should be MVP. And Giannis's team by a hair squeaks out the best record, so I'm allowed to use that as my reasoning for them. I think it's by like 1 win over the Sixers, so it doesn't even really count. But yeah, I picked Giannis. Just when I watch all those 3 teams, I feel his impact the most, and then I think and I don't game plan. I'm not a coach. I think he requires the most game planning of the 3. I could be wrong about that because Embiid draws crazy doubles every game, but some of that's because they don't have good shooters on the Sixers, whereas the Bucks do. There's a lot of factors in play. I'm not a coach. I think it's Giannis. I don't begrudge anyone for picking any of those 3 guys.
I don't envy any coaches trying to figure out a game plan against any of those 3.
Yeah.
No, there's no good answers for any of those guys. All great players.
I'm really looking forward to watching all of them in the postseason. Let's do a dumb one because we have to spend about 2 seconds talking about the Pacers. Coach of the Year. There's only one candidate. Congrats to Rick Carlisle for winning the Pacers Coach of the Year award.
Ronald Norred.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to pass through all the assistants. I like all the assistants. They're very nice to me and are great people. In the league, I only had 2 considerations. I'll let you go first, though, because I ranted about MVP.
I didn't think about this one a lot, but Monty Williams is going to be mine. He's awesome. The Suns are so good. I went with him.
Yeah, he was one of my 2 considerations. I think I should have had 3. I think Spoelstra should be considered for what he did with the Heat, and then Taylor Jenkins with the Grizzlies. I also was like, damn, he had a great year as well. But yeah, I went with Monty. I mean, the Suns were first of all, other coaches already picked him for their version of Coach of the Year, but he just guiding the Suns to their best season in franchise history. At least in terms of win-loss, and they just are a machine. No matter who's playing. When Paul was out, they would win. When Booker was out, they would win. I mean, I think that was easy. He just has that team running and going and looking great. And Taylor Jenkins made the Grizzlies into the 2 seed, but some of that's thanks to, we'll get to most improved player, a certain player on the team taking a big jump as well. And the Heat got Kyle Lowry. So, like, obviously those teams made good jumps and are good, and their coaches are fantastic. But I went with Monty.
Yep. No more needed to be said.
Let's talk about the good folks over at betonline.net really quick. BetOnline is your number 1 source for all your betting stats and sports info. You can find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs and the start of Major League Baseball, all on betonline.net. For example, the biggest game left of this season for the Pacers, Cavs-Hawks right there on betonline.net. Cavs not favored, Hawks favored by 2 points. Perhaps bet on the Hawks that way. If the Cavs win, Pacers fans can be happy, and if the Hawks win, your wallet can be happy. BetOnline, your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head over to that website today, or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action over at betonline.net. BetOnline is where the game starts. Thank you for making Locked On Pacers your first listen today and every single day. For your second listen, I'm going to recommend Locked On Cavs. Get the preview for Cavs-Hawks. Get prepared for either. Do more happiness for the Pacers Friday night. Let's do some more awards, pivoting away from the big one in MVP and the boring one from the Pacers and Coach of the Year. Let's do Rookie of the Year, one that's interesting in the league, less interesting from a Pacers perspective. The Pacers rookie class is actually, despite the doom and dismay of the season, one of the best undrafted rookies in the league. A very good pick at 13 who could end up on an all-rookie team. Go back to Wednesday's podcast if you want more on that. And Isaiah Jackson, who has some of the most unique skills of any big they've had ever on the Pacers. And Terry Taylor, who also has some of the most unique skills they've ever had of a young big on the Pacers. Lots of interesting rookies, but I don't think there's any discussion for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah. Chris Duarte's one. They almost have a full, all Pacers rookie team. But they have 3 or 4 other rookies that played for him, but Gabe York played 2 games. I guess Sykes would be the 5th guy on
Sykes would be
all that on the all rookie team. But Duarte's number 1, and then you got Jackson, Washington, and Terry Taylor all kind of fighting for that
So
second spot.
including Sykes, York, Hinton, and Caver, and Giroux. Oh, Hinton's not a rookie. Including Giroux, Caver, and York, and the 5 guys we named. They got 8 guys on the Pacers rookie squad this year. That's got to be the biggest they've ever had. Yeah, look, Isaiah Jackson was really impressive at times, and I think his ceiling could approach something that is hard to fathom. I don't know but he only played 500 minutes. He was really out of the rotation for a long time, and then got hurt a lot down the stretch. Although it was really one concussion that held him out for 2.5 weeks. So he didn't play enough. He was good enough to maybe get it if he played every game, and Duarte had played what he played. But that was the only way he had a chance. And none of the other rookies were good enough. Like Dwayne, maybe the best undrafted rookie this year. I'd have to dig into that. But yeah, it's Duarte. I mean, he's he's really good. He's probably going to be a starter for this Pacers team next year, and maybe one of the best shooters in the NBA going forward. No debate. And they have not had a rookie as good as him since Turner, for sure. Maybe even beyond that, depending on how you feel about Miles' rookie season. I think he was better than Miles' rookie season. So one of the best rookies they've had in a very, very long time, and it's important that they nurture him and Halliburton correctly.
Yes, it's going to be very fun seeing how, I'm very interested to see how Duarte comes back after a full summer and then being rested. And because I think he wore down, I think after a month or two. It'll be very exciting to see what those two become as time goes on.
He had a good stretch late January to the break, but the toe thing really bogged down how long that was. So I'd be curious what that looks like going forward. The league rookie of the year. This was the hardest one of everything we're going to do, Pacers or league, for me to decide. So I'm going to make you go first.
Same for me. This rookie class is so good, and the top of it is I don't know if it's ever been this hard to pick a rookie of the year. At the end of it, I went with Scotty Barnes as my one, which I don't think he'll win it, but he's mine. Scotty Barnes is my one, and then I went Mobley, and then I went Cade. At the end, they're all so close that I just went with the guy who I felt impacted winning the most. That was my tiebreaker.
Yeah, Cade was 3 for me, which is crazy because he is great. He's gonna probably be the best of these guys in 2 years, but he can't win. He started poorly, he had an ankle injury. Yeah, that sucks for him because he was awesome, but it's just not gonna happen. Scotty and Mobley is so hard because I think the hardest thing for me about this is that Scotty Barnes, you said it, he was a winner, really impactful for a damn good team. They were 1 win out of a top 4 seed in the East, which is wild to think about the Raptors doing this. By the way, the Raptors did a gap year thing and went from limping out of their title to really good. Pacers maybe need to copy that strategy and have just done their gap year. But anyway, Scotty is awesome. He is just arms in your face, and he learned how to, the happy learned how to putt thing was when he finally learned how to put the ball on the floor this year, go towards the basket, and he can fly around. His shooting's not that great, but he is so impactful. And the Raptors are so good at developing players. It's ridiculous. And Mobley is the best defensive rookie since, Tim Duncan. I mean, I don't know of any good mid 2000s defensive rookies off the top of my head. I'm sure there are some, but he is a ridiculous defender. And his offense is not as good as Scotty's, but it's not far away. He's got some decently polished post moves and is a good cutter. A lot of Pacers fans really saw him up close against the Nets in the play-in game. So I chose Mobley because he's already an insanely good defender, even though Scotty Barnes is also a very good defender and contributed to winning basketball. But this is so close. They both are good at a lot of things, and I can't. It's like splitting hairs to pick either one of them.
Yeah, they're both so impressive. I was thinking as I was oh, I should have just went with the Cavs guy. Give some positive juju to the Cavs tonight.
If you want to give positive juju to the Cavs, you got to pick Jared Allen for MVP. We already passed.
Yes. Oh man, I blew it.
If we're this far in, I gotta say, Jared Allen listed questionable for Cavs Hawks. Pacers fans got to be doing their please play dance. That would be very impressive there. Yeah, rookie of the year is easy for the Pacers, but very tough for the league. I think that Scotty can actually win. I think that would be a late surge that is possible. Would you like to do defensive player of the year or most improved player? Actually, let's do most improved. I want to drop a stat bomb on your face.
Okay, do it.
Did you know for the Pacers this year, Jalen Smith played more minutes than Isaiah Jackson?
It's not surprising.
I thought it was surprising.
About it.
Jalen Smith played 14 fewer games, but played more minutes than Isaiah Jackson.
Well, Isaiah had like that one game where he was in for 15 seconds.
He had a couple of those, yeah.
And then like early in the year, he just never played. So it was basically like he was a trade deadline acquisition too, because he didn't play until there was no other centers available.
So Isaiah Jackson has 5 games playing less than 3 minutes and 6 games playing less than 3 minutes and 3 seconds. So that obviously hurts that. But I did not expect that Jalen ended up finishing the season playing more minutes than Isaiah Jackson. So most improved player for the Pacers. This is part of the reason their season was so bad to me. There is only one answer. Sabonis got, I guess, a little better on the defensive end, and I had nothing for this one. Like O'Shea Brissett got a little better putting the ball on the floor with his handle. I guess I thought about him for like 2 seconds in this. And Buddy Hield improved from Sacramento to Indiana. I considered him a little bit for this. But again, no one like from start to finish of the season or from last year to the end of this year was I like, oh, this guy obviously improved a ton and is doing all this, except for one, Jalen Smith. I think he was the only guy that I thought, yeah, he makes any sense as the most improved player here.
He's on my list. I went with someone else.
Whoa. I can't believe that.
The only reason I went with him is because, and it's not even based on last year to this year. And I think part of the reason why it's so close, like they had 28 guys, 8 of them were rookies. So they can't do most improved rookie. And then, but the guy that I went with is Goga, surprisingly. But pre-All-Star break, his numbers were just atrocious.
Yeah.
Like 44% overall field goal percentage, 17% from 3. And then even free throws were lower after the All-Star break, while he still had many games where you're wondering, is this guy an NBA player? He had a lot of like actual decent games as well. And his field goal percentage, what it go up to? Field goal percentage went up to 61.7% after the All-Star break, 45% from 3, and then 78.9% from free throw. So I went with Goga based on, I know usually most improved is from the previous season to this one, but I went from pre-All-Star break to post-All-Star break. I went with Goga, even though there's still many more improvements needed. Jalen was my number 2, and then Buddy, you talked about, was my 3.
Yeah, I probably should have given a little more consideration to Goga. He was that stretch from like right when they realized they were going to trade guys to the break. He was rough. As one of the few people at that time who was talking about Goga Grove and me being the last guy who thinks he could be an NBA player, even I right then was like, oh man, this is not good. So he figured out the 3 post break. Once he figured out the speed thing, the increased speed, he figured it out a little bit, and his defense got a lot better too with those shooting. Like he actually was good, or at least NBA level from the All-Star break on. So yes, that was a big improvement for him. But yeah, I had to go with Jalen. I mean, the Suns traded him and a second for Torrey Craig. Like he had basically no value at that stage. And then the Pacers were like, oh, we turned him into a player that now we can no longer afford. So unfortunate that he wins because it hurts the Pacers in this case. But I think for me, he definitely took the most steps. And even fitting this a little towards your criteria of pre-post All-Star, it's unfair because he played like no minutes for the Suns. In the 6 games he played a lot, he was pretty good. But I think he went from nothing to something as well.
Yeah, I looked at his numbers. It was like, I mean, just look at his 3-point shooting numbers. It was like 23% with the Suns, and then he jumped up to close to 40, I think, with the Pacers. So, yeah, he's definitely the only other like legitimate candidate with, and I would put Buddy in that conversation just with the assist numbers jumping as much as they did
all season. This is after the trade deadline. For the rest of the season, I kept thinking Jalen Smith's 3 is going to start not falling eventually. Oh, it's possible. They kept going in. Maybe he's a shooter. We'll see going forward. That's a pretty important thing for the Pacers, whatever team he's on, trajectory going forward. 2 more awards to go. Let's knock it out. One more short little break to talk about two more awesome groups of people. First up, the good folks over at Built Bar, who are making the best tasting protein bars ever. They are protein bars that taste like candy bars. They come in so many awesome flavors, for there's something for everybody. And they're the best protein bars really that there are. If you get them in the store, they're always really chalky or chewy or disgusting. Built Bars taste like candy bars. Like the peanut butter brownie one is delicious, tastes like a candy bar to me. The cookie dough one is really popular and delicious. The mint brownie one is awesome. What makes them so good? 100% covered in chocolate. Even the puff variety that have marshmallows in them, still covered in chocolate. 100% real chocolate. And they're healthy. Low calorie, high protein. They're great for the health conscious person. They're just better than a candy bar. And they have really a ton of good healthy options. You can see the macros right on their website. 130 calories, 4 grams of net carbs, and 4 grams of sugar in most of them, plus 17 grams of protein. Way healthier than what you're going to eat if you're getting something not good for you. You got to try them. Go to built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15. You'll get 15% off your order of Built Bars. That promo code again is LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Let's also talk about the good folks over at Rock Auto, because there's so many makes and models of vehicles out there. It's impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock everything you need to go in there. The guy asks the exact specs of your vehicle. You don't even know necessarily when you're there. Then you got to try to find it in the store. They never have it. So they got to order it on their computer in there, only ordering what their warehouse happens to carry. You got to go back and get it. That process sucks. You have a computer with access to rockauto.com right at home or in your pocket on your phone, where you can save time and money, 30%, 50%, even 100% savings on some things. Family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Rock Auto's prices are always reliably low. They have everything you can need for your vehicle. Go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck, right? Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box, so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need at rockauto.com. Thank you for making Locked On Pacers your first listen today and every single day. For your second listen, go check out Locked On NBA to hear the latest and greatest news from around the association. 2 more awards to go: Defensive Player of the Year and Sixth Man of the Year. Which one do you want to do first?
Let's do DPOY.
Okay, well, I think this one's easy for the Pacers, but I will let you tell me if you did not have an easy time with this.
No, it was an easy choice. Like, I was trying to think of like who would even be second. And
I thought second was kind of easy too.
I thought second was, well, it was definitely harder than the first one.
Yeah.
Well, who did you have second?
Malcolm
Who's
Brogdon.
your second guy? Malcolm Brogdon. Okay.
Yep.
I just don't think he's good at the point of attack, but as an off-ball guy, yeah, I probably should have considered him more. My second was a tie between Justin Anderson and O'Shea Brissett. Those were my number twos. It was just real hard to think of this season like guys that played good defense. But yeah, Miles Turner, I mean, he had the 5th most blocks in the league and literally played a half of the season. So it's hard to go with anybody else, and especially watching the team this year, they didn't have a defense if he wasn't out there, when he wasn't out there for that whole second half of the season. Not that it was great when those last month or so when he was out there, but that was the defense. If somebody gets to Miles, he might stop it. Otherwise, well.
Yeah, they could not stop anybody without him, and he, that's been the case for forever. But so obvious on the stretch of this season. So the on-off for him are jarring. Like almost 119 defensive rating without him in the game, low 112s with him on the floor. And for reference, a 112 defensive rating isn't great, but it's 18th in the NBA. That's credible, especially for a team that was close to average on offense. And the Pacers finished 28th in defensive rating for those who were curious. So like he basically was the difference between them being the worst defense in the NBA or close to it and like about average, right? He was a hugely impactful guy. Brogdon also had a pretty good on-off on defense, +5. Sabonis had a pretty good defensive on-off. He played a lot with Turner, but he actually defended better this year when he was defending centers with the second unit. The last guy who I actually thought about that I'm surprised you didn't say here was Chris Duarte. Chris Duarte was quietly a pretty good defender, had very tough matchups, and like everybody I've mentioned, really good on-off, +7 on-off on the defensive end of the floor per the PBP stats wowie that I always use because it has like exact scores. Yeah, he I considered a little bit because he always had toughest matchups, but I think Miles was the most impactful. Justin Anderson's a funny one. He was a pretty good defender, but he only played 250 minutes or something.
It was just I was struggling. I should have considered Duarte more. If you could combine Duarte's on ball with Halliburton's off ball, I
Yeah,
think
there we go.
Pacers have a real nice defender there.
That's right. Yeah, Justin Anderson was funny because on ball he was really good and rotating he was really good, but just like sliding around and turning his hips, he was like terrible. He would like if someone threw a skip pass to Justin Anderson's guy, free bucket for the other team because he closed out really poorly. But his on ball defense was really good. So that's funny. I didn't think about him, but I guess if he's the minimum minutes required to be in the conversation, I suppose he should have been. Like the defense when he was on the team was just so bad that I didn't think of anyone in that time.
Yeah, he made like a couple plays, and it's like, hey, somebody did something on defense. Okay.
He had some pretty nice weak side rotation blocks. NBA Defensive Player of the Year, I thought was actually pretty tough. You just went first. I'll go first this time. Marcus Smart's getting a lot of buzz. Mikal Bridges getting a lot of buzz. Neither of them are my winner. This is a weird year. I want to talk about the conversation a little bit this year. This is Jaren Jackson Jr. is getting a lot of buzz. I just remember that. So this Rudy Gobert is always getting buzz. This year's weird because this is kind of the first year I've seen this conversation get hot. I've seen it before, but it's gotten a lot more prevalent. Is like perimeter defense is a lot harder than center defense on a lot of schemes. Not all of them. Like Gobert does a ton of work on defense. Miles does a ton of work on defense. But perimeter defense is getting a lot more buzz now because of how spaced out the league is. So that's why Marcus Smart and Mikal Bridges are really popular names for Defensive Player of the Year. Mine is Bam Adebayo because not only can he do the big man defense thing where he has to switch schemes and play down low, when he switches on a perimeter guy, still an awesome defender, locking guys up. Arms everywhere, running around everywhere, quarterbacking the defense for that really, really good Heat defense. I think they finished number one in defense. I don't want to say that without. Oh, I did fourth. Okay. He was awesome on defense this year to me. And the fact that he toggled between being an almost elite perimeter defender and an elite interior defender made him my choice. But I get the way this conversation is shifting why, if you still value the interior D of Gobert and Jaren Jackson, maybe pick them. And I get why you pick Smarter Mikal, but I think it's Bam.
I think Bam, he wasn't mine, but I think he probably is the best defender. I think how many games did he play? In my mind, he missed a ton of games.
He didn't miss a ton. I forget exactly what he ended at. 58. I don't want to be wrong. I'm 56.
Okay, so he's like right on the edge of like, is that enough or not?
Yeah.
I think if he would have been in like the high 60s, I think I would have chosen him without any hesitation. This was a hard one for me. I didn't there wasn't anybody that yeah, that's definitely the guy. I went with one of the perimeter defenders, and I went with Smart over Bridges. Just that the Celtics defense was so good, and obviously Robert Williams had a huge part in that, and their scheme with playing him not playing him against centers and then allowing him more to roam and everything. But Smart's so good, and just all the things that he can do as a defensive player and his hustle and just everything that he's about as a defender got him over Bridges for me.
Yeah, if I had to pick a perimeter guy, I would also pick Smart. Giannis is funny because when he defends the perimeter, he's very good at it. But with Brook Lopez out all year, he was basically in the center spot for defense all year. So he doesn't vault up high enough for me. Why am I having trouble picking Gobert again? Like he's always so good at this stuff, but this year I'm just like, I don't know. That's a stupid reason, but it didn't feel like as much Rudy this year.
I think part of it's just the whole Jazz vibe.
It's bad.
They really feel like the struggle Pacers right now. Like it's reminding me, like Gobert's comments are making me think of Hibbert with there's a lot of selfish dudes out here. Like
wow,
there's some parallels with.
Wait, I was gonna say this is actually kind of interesting. Donnie's PG, obviously. Is Bojan David West in this situation? Is Royce O'Neal David West?
It's not perfect, but like you always had that comparison, like the Pacers West, Utah, or the Jazz East with the Pacers. But it feels
Jordan
like
Clarkson's Lance. Obviously, that one's kind of easy.
It feels like they're coming to a close here, maybe.
Yeah, Luka Doncic's injury might turn the Jazz franchise around. Like that, it's crazy how much him playing in that last game really mattered. I don't have a space to air this, so I want to talk about it just for a second. Luka got suspended for that game, got the tech rescinded, played, and then they were up big, and the Warriors were up big, so it didn't matter. And then he got hurt. And I get that they don't know the Warriors score, and I get that they wanted to win. But just what an unfortunate situation for the Mavs. Just absolutely brutal string of events that all seemed like things going in their favor and then weren't at all.
It's just insane. All the things that had to happen for Luka to even be out there and then get hurt in what turned out to be a game that didn't matter.
Sucks for the Mavs. Could be huge for the Jazz, who we were just dumping on. Sixth man of the year is last. I'm going to make you go first for the Pacers because I have a question mark after two different names, and I still haven't decided. And my criteria, by the way, I didn't tell Derek criteria was they had to start in less than half of their apperances.
Okay. So these were
did something like that. But
I had three guys that I was considering.
Okay.
My third guy is Dwayne Washington. He was my number 3. He just feels like a guy that maybe at his like best potential, like that's what he could be, like that 6-man guy who just comes off the bench and just lights it up and then doesn't play much defense, like those kind of 6-man guys. Jalen Smith was my second guy. Did he start?
No, he's legal. He is legal.
Jalen Smith was my guy, and then Lance was my one. No,
Wow.
The reason why is just he literally did something that nobody in the NBA has ever done off the bench ever. So that first game back in Indy, he scored 20 points in that first quarter off the bench, and just nobody's ever done that before. So I felt like that alone. And then the next game, he had the 14 assists against Hassan Whiteside's terrible defense with Domas running the pick and roll. Those two games there wasn't any great candidates here, and those two games alone for Lance.
No, there are not. Lance reached my Lance did good enough that I typed his name, but he was third for me. He played a lot. He played in 40 games, only started once. Like very obviously a good 6th man and sort of standard criteria. Like he was a good scorer, definitely an offensive jolt. I think that his defense was very overrated by fans this year. His offense was better than it's ever been before, but his defense was not very good this year.
Bad.
So I have him typed, but third for me. Jalen Smith didn't even type it. That's fascinating to me. And maybe I should have. You've got me thinking about that one. I did not consider him. The two that I had, my winner, you didn't even say his name. My second place was Dwayne Washington. That I think, you're right. He feels like the 6th man kind of guy, right? Your Jordan Clarksons, your Lou Williams, your Jamal Crawford, right? Those guys that come in and give you 15 points when your starter's stinking it up and you need a jolt, right? Dwayne Washington's got that microwave ability. I can't believe this. Maybe you don't realize he started less than half of his appearances. My winner was O'Shea Brissett, the most impactful bench player to me for much of the season. When they were actually good, he was often their first sub. It took Rick a while to figure it out, but he did it. He was often their first sub, and then he started for a little when they needed him at the end and in the middle of the season. But even late, before the deadline when he was coming off the bench, he was their first sub. So he's a good team defender. He got his 3-ball figured out as the season went on, played in the most games for the Pacers by a lot. I thought he was the most impactful bench guy for them throughout the course of the whole season.
Big O'Shea fan. I didn't even consider him as like an off the bench guy just because of the way the post All-Star break went.
Yeah, he started like every
game towards the end. So yeah, he just wasn't on my radar for.
I figured that out as I was talking. I was like, oh, he doesn't realize he started less than half, does he? Yeah, that makes sense. That makes more sense. 25 starts and 67 appearances for O'Shea Brissett. 67 appearances being first on a team, by the way, is bonkers. And I think the number of games you have to play in to be considered for league awards, right, is 55, right? One more than 2/3 or something like that. And the Pacers had no one reach it except for, and Duarte. I think it's 56, actually. Or I forget. No one reached it but O'Shea. So, like, there was this funny Reddit post that, like, if you count guys who were eligible for awards, O'Shea Brissett led the Pacers in points, rebounds, assists, steals. Like, he was the only guy eligible,
MVP.
Even though he didn't actually lead the Pacers in those stats. I thought that was funny.
So what you're saying is O'Shea should have won every single award. He's the only one eligible.
Well, sort of, because like remember, Miles won the block title last year despite not getting the games because he had enough blocks that if he had enough games, he still would have been first, which is really confusing. But I think that was something LeBron, people were like, oh, if he scores like a certain bajillion points against the Thunder and then sits, he could still win. I was like, this is stupid. They're not even going to make the playoffs. Yeah, this was a tough exercise for the Pacers this year because not a lot of players got better. They sucked on defense and they made a bunch of trades. So like no one really played a ton of minutes or was really impactful over the course of the whole season. And I think that this is ironic. We haven't even done our league sixth man yet. But to sum up the Pacers part of this conversation, the fact that this is so difficult and honestly like not a depressing exercise, but just like look at the names we're picking for these awards. Kind of sums up the Pacers season perfectly.
Yeah, it's it's not a pretty sight.
The most improved player was like a trade that I called the cap trade when it happened, right? Like they traded Torrey Craig for.
Did we pick an NBA most improved?
Oh my gosh, we skipped over that, didn't we?
I just realized that.
Well, I only have one guy that I think makes any. I mean, there's a lot of guys who got better, but one guy's going to run away with it, right?
Yeah, like I was in my head, I was thinking had better numbers last year, so I was like, he's too good to consider. And then I looked at it, and it was just like, oh no, he's the guy. Like it has to be him. The only other guy that I was going to consider, well, two, the biggest one I was going to consider was DeJounte Murray, and then Darius Garland was my three for that one.
Yeah, the betting lines for all like the player awards, Mobley's minus 250, barely a leader. Smart's minus 300. Jokic even at MVP is minus 350. Like kind of close. Like favorites for sure, but kind of close. Morant's minus 1,000. Like he's gonna win him. Most improved. Like he is such a big favorite that it's ridiculous. Yeah, that is true. I can't believe we forgot to do league most improved. I would have considered DeJounte as well. Miles Bridges had an early case that really went away. Garland has a little bit of a case, I think, as well. Jordan Poole was pretty good for the Warriors, but missed some games and was weirdly in the funk when he was with the bench. The fact that a guy they got from a cap trade, Jalen Smith for the Pacers, is their most improved player and like their defensive player of the year, played one game more than half. Their MVP is not even on the team anymore. Like just a strange exercise this year. We got to close this out. League sixth man of the year, also according to the betting, a runaway favorite for this one.
Yeah, I didn't even consider anyone else. It was just Tyler Hero.
Yeah,
I don't love the guy, but he's a great basketball player.
He's like the pinnacle of what this award has been because Crawford and the guys who's named earlier, right? Crawford, Clarkson, Lou Williams, the names you think of when you think of this award, like they're obviously microwave scorers, but that's kind of it. Like Hero is actually kind of good at some other stuff. Like he's a decent rebounder. He can kind of pass. He's a good pick and roll manipulator. Like he's really good. He went back to Bubble Hero this year. He's going to win. Kevin Love, impact stats say Kevin Love was just as good as him, and Kevin Love's been really good for the Cavs this year and resurgent. And then after Kevin Love, like there are no candidates. There are no. Was it just like a renaissance of bad bench this year? I don't. The third highest betting odds guy is Kelly Oubre, who I'm like, no, what? So yeah, Hero's gonna win. I picked Hero too, but that is a strange one for the league this year.
Yeah, Kelly Oubre. Like if you would have given me like 15 names to just throw out, I don't even think that would have come up. I missed another chance to throw the Cavs some juju with Kevin Love, I guess. But
yeah. What are you doing, man? What are you doing? For Coach of the Year.
If Karras has a great game, he could be in the Pacers MVP conversation because he could literally earn the Pacers that first round pick.
That's true. That would be huge. Yeah, Karras was not good in the first playing game, and he was being guarded by Kyrie, so I thought they would try to get him a little more involved. And if Jared Allen doesn't play, I think they need to try to find Karras' man. I'm assuming they'll put Trae Young on Karras instead of Garland. Then that is something that the Cavs really need to do. I don't want to preview that game too much here, but I think him being good and helping the Pacers would be the perfect ending to this Pacers season, ironically.
Yes, somehow, some way, Cavs.
Yeah, they need to. If Allen plays, I think they've got a pretty good shot, especially because Bogdanovich also questionable. Going to be fascinating to see how that game shakes out. Obviously, that is the story to cover on Monday's podcast. If the Cavs lose, I'll talk about what that means for the pick going forward or some creative things that could happen as a result of it this year for the Pacers and Cavs, or how this works next year and in future seasons. And then we'll do some key dates for the offseason because the Pacers have a lot to worry about. And some cool guests lined up next week talking about the Pacers as we transition into offseason mode here on the Locked On Pacers podcast. Derek, thank you for your time. Where can people follow you and all your work?
Twitter at iPacersblog, my almost defunct website, iPacers.com. You can take a look, have a little blast to the past.
He had one post this year, and it was wonderful. Derek, thank you very much for the time. Thank you for letting me always bounce ideas off of you on Twitter DMs. Everybody, have a great weekend. Try not to get too hung up on Cavs Hawks and enjoy your weekend. And thank you, and have a great weekend. We will see you on Monday.